What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy, Storyteller Jet, with another episode of the That's So Fire talk show. And today, we have a special guest in the talk show today, Zack, in the house. Super excited to have you. We had an awesome pre-show, like a week ago or something like that. And I'm super pumped for what we're going to be talking today. You have an amazing story, and I cannot wait to share it.
Yeah, as well as mid-tattoo. So
mid-tattoo,
my brain was scrambled.
Yeah, yep. Man, tattoo looks fantastic and beautiful. We'll talk about that a little bit later, too. Zack, such a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Let's start by doing a quick introduction of who you are, and let's get rocking.
Cool, sounds good. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Zack Straughn. Been dealing with basically creating a business called the Straughn Point. Has to do a lot with recovery and addiction tied into fitness. I want to work with a lot of people and give them that sense of community, building a lot of discipline and just overall transforming their entire life, not just getting them a six-pack, but also helping them with relationships, work, whether it's your faith, whatever it is. I want to give you access to that as well. Just from my personal story of dealing with addiction for 10 years, tied in with about 6-7 years of fitness experience, I think I'm building something truly special here.
Awesome. So today we are going to be talking about turning point into pure power through sobriety and fitness. You have an amazing story that I got a chance to chat about a week ago. Can you talk to us a little bit about your past and some of the things that you had to deal with?
Yeah. So from an addiction standpoint, my story is, I had one probably similar to a lot of people. I started drinking in high school. It was the cool thing to do, that kind of thing. Transferred into college, and then, drugs started popping up, getting more accessible. So that's kind of where things started taking a turn. At the time, though, it was, you're in college, so it's like kind of acceptable. You're like, oh, everybody's partying, everybody's doing drugs. But you just don't really realize what the beginning of addiction really looks like, which is something that I think is important to start bringing awareness to. So it started there, started developing that. I started to get, I'll be as authentic as possible here. I started getting into cocaine, some pills, drinking a lot, turned into a point where, I started missing class. I started, just sacrificing all these real reasons of why I was there. Still didn't really put two and two together what was going on. I ended up dropping out of school. I used at the time, the reason I wanted to do so was I had this passion. All of a sudden I wanted to be a DJ, right? They were so cool. They were up there mixing music, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I'm going to be that guy that follows his dreams, was the, at the time, like what I had contributed that to. So I left school, needed to make some money though, to try and, pursue that passion. So I got into bartending. I bartended for about 5 years, but same thing. It was a crowd of a lot of drinkers, not only on the customer side, but a lot of people in the service industry, drink. It leads to drug dealers hanging out at bars. There's just it's the same scene where you're just kind of around all that stuff all the time. So it seems really normal. You're only, conversing with people to where that's what their, either daily habits are, what they like to do for fun, So even outside of the job itself, I was drinking on the job, but outside of the job itself, they're, hey, what do we do for fun? We go to the bar. How did I meet them? They were a customer at my bar, right?
Yeah.
So, one thing turned into another, but again, it was one of those things where, oh, this is acceptable, the bar scene, I have to drink. I usually, what I would do is, it's funny looking back, is I would use the, I guess you would say, excuse of that I was networking, right? So I would say, well, what should I do in my off time? Well, I should go meet other bartenders because typically service industry people tip the most, right? So I was like, oh, this is smart what I'm doing. I'm going to go drink at other bars, tell them to come visit mine, and vice versa. So then, but what I realized is, looking back, is I was drinking 7 days a week. That's really what it was.
Wow.
Don't get me wrong. I was making a lot of money as a bartender. I even built like a Facebook community of like people to let them know, like, hey, this is when I'm coming in, etc. But yeah, so then I decided at that point, I had actually gotten to the point where I was going through a divorce, and I got into a new relationship right after that. But I had actually wrecked my car, got evicted from my apartment, and went to rehab all in the same week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit because I think that was like, crazy moment. But now let's talk back a little bit out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people right now might be dealing with that. Young kids in school dealing with drugs. how did you get into doing that while you were still in high school and get introduced to drugs?
I think it boils down to you want to fit in. Typically, 9 times out of 10, the popular kids that everybody wants to fit in with are the ones that are drinking. It's the cool thing to do. It's where the pretty girls are. It's where, it's kind of just that circle of, we're consumed with social media and everybody wants to be with the cool kids. Everybody wants the pretty girls. Everyone wants all these things, right? So I think that's really where it started to consume me. Funny enough, though, like growing up, I was actually a pretty like anxious kid. I was a pretty shy kid. I had my group of friends, but I was like always wanting, the popular ones and stuff like that. So I felt like drinking was a way to connect with them is what it was. And then, you get stoked for, you go to school the next day and, you're hearing the stories about the crazy stuff that happened last night. And then same thing with college. I mean, you go and you join a fraternity, and I think a fraternity is great, especially like as far as like from a business networking standpoint down the line. But it's the same thing. I mean, you ultimately are paying to join a group of people that are labeled as cool so that you can go to these parties and everything. And I'm not dogging on fraternities because, like I said, there is a lot of benefits. And I was in one myself. But I think drinking, and I think everything has been publicized to the point where it's just so like the cool thing to do. I mean, even if you look at social media nowadays, like some of the guys that are really famous, and I don't like to dog on people like now that I'm sober. That's not what I'm doing whatsoever. I just like to bring awareness to it that, you don't have to try so hard to fit in, because honestly, I think as the days go on, like people can see authenticity. They can see through, like let's say you're making stuff on social media, whatever. They can tell if you're telling the truth or if it's bullshit. But I just think it's glamorized. I think it's glamorized everywhere. I think it's glamorized in school, in college. I think it's glamorized on social media, on TV. I think it's just, it's what the cool people are doing. And I don't think sobriety is talked about enough as an empowering thing to where you are actually so much more productive, get so much more done. I feel like I'm rambling on this, but
no, you're good, man. So now from where you are at today and your experience over the past, I don't know how many years, what advice would you give to the young kids in high school or even going through college that are dealing with drinking and doing drugs?
To tell someone younger is more difficult for me. I know they're going through a lot of external factors that they haven't like found themselves yet. You know what I mean? They're still learning, but I think it's also a very crucial point where they need to hear stuff like this. If you can, it ultimately boils down to like, I think who you surround yourself with is just very, very influential on you. And I think there needs to be more people that speak out about how being successful is cool, how working hard is cool, how, not wasting your money, not wasting your time on sneaking out of the house. Like if we're talking to the younger group and, blowing all the money that, let's say you have a job, in high school, or whatever it is, like, blowing it on those things, because ultimately drinking and partying is the one thing that you get zero from. Like there's zero reward. You wake up feeling terrible. You spent money that you shouldn't have probably spent. There's literally just nothing to it. Half the time you don't even remember the conversations that you had with the people that you're connecting with. So you wake up and you guys are buddy-buddy, but what did you talk about? You can't tell me even 50% of what you talked about half the time. And the thing is you start developing these connections, which I think this is what the kids need to realize is you start developing these connections that are formed over drinking. So that's something that I had to figure out, over time, is that when I was building, who I am and getting sober, I lost a lot of friends. Why so? Because that's what we did for fun. You put the same two people that, you guys drink all the time and you're the best of buddies, but it's really, really rare that you can put those same two people in the same room sober and they have the same level of connection. They talk about the same things, if that's all they've ever done, right? And so I think that you're building fake relationships half the time. And so I think if you want to build real relationships, you want to do something important and you really want to do something down the line, alcohol is just not the way to do it. Just getting sucked into all that. So I think that's like the biggest advice that I would give kids is try to find, it's just hard because they're still learning themselves, but it's really good to look up to like a mentor, or maybe if you have a big brother, if you have a good father figure, even a mother figure, if you have somebody, an older sister, somebody in your life that you can look up to for that kind of discipline, and just go to them when you feel like, hey, should I be making this decision or not? If you feel like they're in the shoes that you want to be in. Because if you turn to the guys that drink all the time, they're going to tell you, let's go drink every time. But ultimately down the road, especially coming from like me, it leads nowhere. It leads you broke. It leads you heartbroken. You're destroying everybody around you. It's a very destructive path. And the biggest thing about it that I realized is the effects that it has on your brain. Because one of my biggest delusions that it took me so long to crack is that I felt like I was always in control. I felt like every move I made was calculated to the point where I knew what was going on. Especially when cocaine was brought into the equation, because you feel awareness-wise like you're awake, and you feel like you can make these critical decisions, but ultimately it consumes your brain. It's poison. It's literally poison that is telling you to do something that you usually wouldn't do. And why do you wake up every time thinking, that was stupid? Why did I do that last night? Because because even though you felt in control, you weren't in control. That's why. It's such poison on the mind, and it holds you back from, a lot of kids in school too. I mean, you're wanting to play football one day. You're wanting to, get into working out. You're doing all these things. And what do you think that does? I mean, it cuts protein synthesis and by over half. You're literally limiting yourself in every single way, whether it's, the growth of the brain because you want to get smarter, whether it's the growth of the body because you want to play sports. You're literally limiting and halting all of your dreams. You have your anomalies like Johnny Manziel that went out there and, but it's just like, ultimately it's poison is what I would say.
Yeah. So you've went through some really hard time. Can you talk to me about your lowest point that you've ever gotten over, your experience with drugs and alcohol?
Yeah. What the craziest part about it is my addiction was so deep that even when I have multiple low points that I'll go over. My addiction was so deep that even when I hit those low points that you think would snap any person, like any rational human out of it, it still wasn't going. And so like, I'll start off first with, like I was talking about how I lost, I totaled my car, I lost my job, and I came back. I was on the way to the casino, of course, terrible decision. Lost a bunch of money there. It's crazy the control that it has over your head, because you're halfway to a casino, right? You get into a big car accident, which I was drunk behind the wheel as well. And so it's like you get into this big car accident, right? And you're thinking, all right, it's time to call. It's time to go home. But guess what? Like I said, you're not thinking rationally. So what did we do? We Ubered the rest of the way to Louisiana. I was in Houston, Texas at the time. We Ubered to Louisiana to keep it going, right? I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to go have my fun, right? I'll just come back to my car. I'll figure it out in the morning. So it's like you go make that decision. Then I Uber all the way back. I'm evicted from my apartment because I wasn't even realizing how much I was putting off my bills, because it was just funneling money into gambling or into drinking. And, I have to be everywhere that's cool at the time. I can't miss out, right? I came back to all that destruction and ultimately went to rehab, but I feel like I went to rehab with the wrong intention. I went there because I had nowhere else to go. So I was like, shoot, like, what do I do? And, but a part of me in that broken moment was like, hey, you know what? Like, I really need to get my shit together. But the thing is, I didn't know where to start. And so half of it was, well, I need a place to stay. But also I do have this minor part of me that is screaming on the inside saying, this isn't okay. That's a big event for all three of those things to happen in the same week.
1 week for
like, it's traumatic.
That's
like,
traumatic. That's a lot.
And so I went and I went to this rehab facility, and I'll be honest, it wasn't really working for me, but it was because I didn't want it to work. Like I said, I think it was a small percentage deep down. And I just think that I was still, also when I had went in, I was drunk. And so so the biggest misconception that a lot of people have is that when you wake up from being sober, when you are, let's say, you go drinking on a Saturday, Sunday, and you wake up Monday, Tuesday, all of a sudden you start feeling better and you think you're sober. You're not sober. The lasting effects on the brain and your decision making go far beyond that. And so I think going to rehab sober, I was there for about a month, but I still feel like I'm getting clearer to this day. And I've been sober for, going on like 7-8 months now. And I just think that everlasting effect of all the alcohol, especially built up over time. I mean, at this point I was 7 years in. So it was like, and I'm drinking constantly 5, 6, 7 times a week, and I think it's just so built up in my brain that I think I'm sober and I think I'm getting better in this rehab, but still in the back of my mind, the addiction is still grabbing, because it's like, and I only gave it a month. I'll say that. It didn't work for me, just in the sense of, again, a victim mindset. And I made an excuse. My excuse at that time was I was in there with heroin addicts. I watched a guy overdose in there because he had his drug dealer drop off stuff at the rehab facility.
Wow.
He went outside. I watched that like literally happen. Went outside to go, and I found this guy that was just out there. That was traumatic as well. Again, another event that you would think would kind of wake you up. But what did my brain do? Because alcohol has a grip on the brain, it made me think, oh, I'm not like them. I'm not that bad. Like, are you kidding me? I always, figure out a way to, I can hold like a job here and there. I can do these things. You know what I mean? I'm not overdosing outside of a building. Watching that, my brain played a trick on me saying, you're not like them. It's not that bad. So I was like, oh, I don't need this. So then I left and then I went back. Another big moment, this one's a little harder to talk about, but I would say that something that led to my turning point is the relationship that I was in at that point. There was a point where I was still super deep in my addiction, but basically we had gotten pregnant with twins.
Before we delve into that, I have two more questions because I think this is a really good story to talk about too. But so you talked a little bit earlier about driving to go to the casino and you got into an accident and you were drunk. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to people out there that are driving while intoxicated?
Besides just don't do it.
Besides don't do it. And what are there some of the repercussion from doing that? If you had to have like, how do you call that? Like a PSA?
Public service announcement.
Yeah. Let me ask that question one more time. What advice would you give to people that are driving while intoxicated and how dangerous that is and why they should not do it?
I think deep down, it's one of the most selfish things that you could possibly do, honestly, truthfully. I firmly believe, because like I say, I'm getting clearer by the day. Looking back on that, let me expand on the story a little bit. So I had hit a side rail, and basically what happened is the car spun out of control. Nobody was hit. I didn't affect anybody. Another reason that I didn't deem it a big deal, because I had hit it. It was the middle of the night. Nobody was there. So I left my car on the side of the road because all I did was snap like the rotor in half. I couldn't drive it, but I was like, oh, I'll just go back in the morning and get it. When I'd come back to get it, it was gone. And I didn't realize what had happened, so I called the nearest tow yard. The lady was like, oh, that's your car, kind of laughed at me, and then sent me a picture of my car. Absolutely. You couldn't even recognize that it was a car because it was so much scrap metal. Basically, an 18-wheeler, or there was a guy that was driving drunk as well. In the middle of the night, he veered off the road, hit my car perfectly in the back end where I had it parked on the side, to where it knocked it into the highway, and an 18-wheeler completely tore through it.
Wow.
So luckily I wasn't in the car, but then that, like, looking back as I get clearer, is that stupid decision that I thought like was not a big deal. Oh, I didn't hurt anybody. I put it on the side of the road, but look what happened. I mean, people could have died. That car could have flung in there, killed multiple people. Like, anything could have happened. So that's why I think it's one of the most selfish things you can do, because when you're drinking, you're very selfish a lot of the times. And I just, like, looking back at that moment, I think about all the time of like all the damage that could have been done. And it's like, once you start affecting other people, like who are you to do that to other people? You know what I mean? It's a very dangerous thing. And it's like, that can cost you not only your own life, but you're costing other people their lives. And so it's just the most dangerous thing. You're not in control of the wheel. You're not like, there's just so much risk involved, and there's so many good people in the world that I think it's the most selfish thing in the world for somebody to fall victim to your reckless, drunken mistakes. Go do it on your own time, especially in the day and age we live in where you have Uber and all these things. It's like, people want to make the excuse that, oh, but the Uber is like $25. Yeah, but when you're intoxicated, I know damn well you go to the bar and easily will spend $300. You know what I mean? Because for some reason, the grip that alcohol has on your brain is like, you go to the store and you look at a pair of shoes that's $200, right? And you kind of like, should I spend that on the shoes? You kind of start thinking a little more rationally. You're also probably sober at the mall. When you're at the bar, $200 will go out of your bank account like that. Like, you're sitting there, you don't even think twice, because you and your friends, they think it's cool if, like, let me buy shots for everybody. You don't even think about it. And that's what I mean, is your decision making is so crippled. But so I mean, to wrap that up, like that would be my PSA, is I genuinely think is one of the most selfish things that you can do, to drive drunk, because you are affecting people that did nothing wrong. They just will happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And you are destroying family. It's everlasting impact that you will have on people by destroying other people's families, kids, parents, whatever it is that you could inflict on them by driving drunk. Yeah. And not only, I mean, you could kill yourself at any moment. Like, your reaction time is slowed significantly when you're on alcohol. So it's like you can't adjust if anything happens. And it's not about, oh, I'm in control of the wheel, I'm a good driver. You also don't know what other people are doing on the road. You know, somebody could be texting and driving and they slip, you know, out of place a little bit, and you can't react fast enough. And it's just like, it's just a traumatic experience waiting to happen. And if you keep doing it over and over, it's going to happen eventually, honestly.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that as well. And yeah, please don't drink and drive. Please don't. I've known some people that like got like very bright people that I went to school with, and very bright, was in honors, you know, class with me, and ended up going, you know, to jail because like they were driving drunk.
Yeah.
So another thing that you touched on was about going to get help. And a lot of people, when they're going through hard times, they don't want to get help. They don't want to do the things that could potentially help them, even though you did it for the wrong reason. But what advice would you give to people that are dealing with drug and alcohol, hitting their lowest point, and even like, you know, having family telling them, hey, you should, you know, go get help? What advice would you give to people as it relates to getting help when they are hitting their lowest point and, you know, from drinking or doing drugs?
So let me just rephrase this. So like, what is the advice I would give to somebody that's in the lowest point or heading towards that point?
Or heading to that point that needs help? What advice would you give to somebody that is doing drugs and alcohol? Like sometimes, like for example, people would tell them, hey, you need to go get help. But that pride or that they don't want to do that. So yeah. So what advice would you give to people that are doing drugs and alcohol when somebody comes to them and say, hey, you need to go get help? What would you tell them and how important that is?
So there's a couple of things here, right? I think that this is why I feel like what I'm doing too, and I'll get to the point of like what I've started and everything. This is why I think what I'm doing is so important, because there are not enough people that are on the supportive side of things. And so many people are afraid to ask for help. They think it's looked down upon. It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of, you know, it's not the cool thing to do, depending on your age group. It's really, really hard for people to be true, authentic, and when they want help, ask for it. And I don't know where that became such a difficult thing. Like I said, I think it has a lot to do with there's not enough people speaking out and trying to help. I mean, I'm not going to put the blame one way or another, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But the advice that I would give is, if you take it from me, right, I have 10 years of my life that I'll never get back because I never asked for help. I didn't want help. When it was from my parents, when it was from people I cared about, whenever it was that, it was, oh, they're just saying it just to say it, or you know what I mean? It's the same thing as, you know, when your grandma says you look handsome, right? It's just like, yeah, but it's my grandma. You start brushing it off. And so I think a sense of community is very important. So not only a message to people saying like, you know, you need to ask for help, and there's nothing wrong with being truthful and authentic in who you are. And if you want help, I promise you, you are doing a step in the right direction that is 100 times more powerful than everyone else that, you know, is saying don't ask for help, or saying like, you know, they don't want to help you. And also too, you have to look at it too. Like, some advice I would give is, if you have a problem going to the people in your immediate circle for help, maybe they're not the right people. I mean, honestly, like, if you are sitting there and are like, I would be judged by all 5 of these people in my friend group if I went to one of them and said, hey man, I don't think my life's going in the right direction and I need help. What do you think I should do? They're not the right people. It's the same thing as like when I got sober. You lose a lot of friends because that's how you really separate. I think getting sober and also trying to start a business or do something bold on social media is a big indicator of, it's basically how you weed out all the people that were never really there in the first place. Yeah. The fake connections, you weed all that out, because for some reason on the supportive side, it's so hard for people to support somebody that's either just following a dream, you know, they want to do better. Hey, I want to, you know, whether it's I want to go have faith in Christ, or I want to go start a business, or I want to, you know, they truly, genuinely have this cry for help, or they want to do something better with themselves. And I don't understand where we got to a point where that was so hard to support, especially on things like, let's say Instagram, for instance. Let's say, you know, a like, a comment, a share, a repost are such free and important ways to support a friend. And it is so difficult for some people to do that because they don't want to associate with it. It's uncool, right?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how like I've had so many people coming and telling me, "Hey, Jet, I absolutely love your show. You've been doing so amazing on social media and posting all of that, having amazing guests and having some great stories." Those same people, if I go and look at my past 25 posts, none of them have liked it. They've watched it, they get learning from it and doing all of that, but like the simplest thing that they're not really doing to support you.
They're afraid to put their name to it because
Yeah.
you're doing something bold. You're trying to do something impactful, and like for some reason, and then it's funny because this is where I say like a lot of comments start, or like a lot of, I guess you would say, like phrases or like things that you see on reels or like from successful people stand out, and you start realizing that they're speaking truth the whole time. Is like nobody wants to support it when you're in that stage of like you're growing, but the second you hit it big, oh, everyone's gonna be pouring it. They're gonna be liking all your stuff. Oh, I knew him from back in the day. Oh, we're like this. But when you're on that road up, it's so hard for people to stick their name out on it.
Yeah, for sure. So now we've talked about those two things that I wanted to touch on. What was the next lowest point that you've had? And I know we've talked about, you losing a couple of your kids. What was the next lowest point that you've had as a result of alcohol and drugs?
Do you want me to dive deeper into the
The next
the
one.
trials?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, got pregnant with twins, and to keep a long story short, because it's still like something that's difficult for me to talk about, but I was basically at a point. I don't like to go into either like pro-life, pro-choice, this kind of thing either, but I was at a point where I was so deep in my addiction that, like I said, I felt like I had control, and I was like, oh, let's have them. Because that's firmly what I believe. I mean, I do like, I thought I would just figure it out, but also I do like, I'm going to leave it up to her. I'm not the one pregnant. I'm not the one that has to deal with it. But also I had to, now that I'm like clear in the head, because I tried to blame external factors. I tried to blame other people for this. Ultimately, I do not blame her for us having an abortion due to the fact that I was not in a good state. I mean, I was in a state where any rational human being would look at you and be like, you want me to trust you to father two of our kids while you're drinking all the time, on drugs, sometimes going missing for like 2 days because you're on this little bender, and like, you know what I mean? Like, how can somebody trust you to be a father? And this is one of the things, like going to, and so, I mean, to this day, like, I put that blame on myself now that I'm clear. And I think that drinking was just something that kept consuming me at these low points because it was so easy for me to distract myself from it. And then also play victim and blame other people and say like, oh, that wasn't my fault. It was you chose to do that. But I could never put myself in their shoes because I almost describe being in addiction and alcohol having that consumption on your brain as if, like in the TV shows when you have like the angel on one shoulder and the devil, and you have like the one that's just piping in your ear nonstop. That's literally what it does to your conscience. And it's just feeding you every excuse in the book to keep drinking. It's actually insane. So that's something that I live with, is that now that I'm clear, because my next lowest point, so like to tie into that, my next lowest point was basically after that relationship had ended, I had to leave. I moved out, and to make that story like kind of condensed, I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I pretty much put myself in an isolated standpoint with a buddy of mine at the time that, again, like we were buddies, yeah, but like were we really buddies? But I was sleeping on his couch, had no money, severe debt, credit score was tanked, like no car, no nothing. I had like literally nothing. I was sleeping on a couch, and that's when I really started to look at it, when I no longer had a crutch. So one of the biggest things that's hard is you don't want to give up on, when you're dealing with alcohol and you have these people in your life, it's really hard to support it or it's not support it, but support them, because especially I find this a lot with like parents or siblings, or, if it's your brother, your sister, your mother, or, your son, your daughter, it's really, really hard to give up on them, you know what I mean? And watch them deal with this. And it's, again, this is why I say it's a very selfish thing, because you don't understand what you're doing to other people by them constantly dealing with the battle of, they love you so much that they don't want to give up, but also you are putting out so much evil around you and so much destruction that you're not even realizing. And so at the end of the day, it's something I'm still trying to figure out, but sometimes you just have to say enough is enough and stop being that crutch for them, because I feel like they always turn back to the bottle. This is a big, like, I would say like a tip for me is that I think alcoholics will turn back to the bottle constantly when they have that place of comfortability and they have support systems that will never give up on them, because it's a crutch. At the end of the day, that they know that if they go out and get drunk and come back home and whine about it, somebody's there to listen. Somebody's there to let them play victim, and somebody is there to let them continue. And I think if you're support, like you, it's a really difficult thing. Don't get me wrong. And I put myself in their shoes, but sometimes you have to push them away. Like you have to just push them into isolation, because tying into what I'm saying is when I isolated myself, I started realizing that my crutches were running out. I had no girlfriend. I had my relationship with my parents is destroyed. My friends are starting to like be like, dude, this is even getting like a little much, right? Like we drink all the time, but this is getting a little much, right? And those crutches were slowly falling off. And I think that's when I really realized is I had no more crutches, and I had to look in the mirror, and I had a low point of, I'm about to be 28 years old. I have no money, no car, no place to stay. I'm living on a couch, and I pretend to be this person that I'm not. Like, what is that? Where did that get me? All these excuses from, oh, it's because I'm in college. Oh, it's because I'm a bartender. Oh, it's this. Or, oh, I can do that. It's fine. Oh, I wrecked my car because, you know, I didn't hurt anybody, though. All these excuses, they just led to, now that I have no crutch and like things to rely on, it's just, dude, you're a loser. You're alone. You're sleeping on a couch, and you have literally nothing to your name. You've lost your friends. You've lost your relationships. You've now lost kids. You've lost, and it was like all of the turning points, or like the low points, flooded me. I was just like overwhelmed with so much guilt, anxiety, depression, like all these things, because luckily for me, I didn't even have money or a job or anything to go buy alcohol. So like, luckily I got to a point where I was like, I can't even afford the alcohol. So I was like, started to like kind of drift into this, like starting to get a little clearer in the head. You know what I mean? And that's genuinely when it all changed, but it was a buildup of a lot of different low points. And I feel like it was just so much drowning regret that I was like, I can't do this anymore, because this person I was trying to be, this cool person that was, you know, drinking and hanging out with all these people and drugs and all this stuff, it literally got me nowhere. And I felt like, what was going to change? If nothing changes, nothing changes. It's such like a simple quote, but it's like truth. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And it's like, you sit here and you also use the victim mindset of, I'm in my early 20s. I'm figuring it out. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. Like it'll click eventually. And then it's like, but I was going to sit there and do that until what? I'm 35, and then now I'm 45, and then now I'm 55. And that's why, you know, you still see people that are 60 years old and they're still sitting there with the bottle. And it's like, I mean, you end up homeless. Like it's a cycle it's a vicious cycle that's just really hard to kick. But I just think I was dealing with so much trauma and emotion, like to the brain from so much buildup, that I finally had to look in the mirror and deal with, because like I wasn't drinking at the time due to the fact I didn't have money for it. But like, I grasped onto that and took it as an opportunity, basically, to like, yo, let's man up. Let's take accountability. And I started realizing a lot of stuff was my fault. That was the biggest like thing that I realized was, there's so much, like, I found so much pride in saying, this is my fault. And now I own up to everything. Even if it's something like I was late to go get my hair cut. And the guy, when he walked in, that was now had to wait because I was late, I straight up just said, hey man, that's my fault, by the way. Like, I showed up late. Didn't have to say that. Yeah. But I find so much more pride now in just being like, it's my fault. I take accountability. And then I feel like that's slowly what has like started making me more successful, is everything's my fault. I went from nothing's my fault to everything is my fault.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went through really some hardship. You totaled your car, you were evicted to your house, and you were dealing with a bunch of different things that, like, I would not wish on any person. What was that turning point for you?
Well, so like, what did it turn into?
What was the turning point when you decided that enough is enough?
Honestly, a lot of bad things have happened that I've just discussed. But honestly, if I was to be as open about it as I can, I think it was heartbreak. Honestly, I think that the woman that I was deeply in love with at the time, when that came to an end and I realized it was like actually at an end, I think that was genuinely the turning point, because I was with her for so long, and like I said, it was a crutch, but because the reason that ended was because I pretended to be the man, and I pretended to be like, you know, I got it all figured out. And so it was like, she's also was older than me, more successful than me. There was a lot of things that I kind of looked up to her in a way of like a mentor. And so it was like when that one person that was like, I was giving him my all to, like, when that person turned their back on me, that's why I feel like, sometimes you got to turn your back on a person with that's severe into addiction, because it might wake them up. I know it's scary, but it might wake them up. I think it was truly heartbreak. Honestly, I think what it was. And I think now I've looked like a lot, I resonate a lot more with, I think heartbreak is one of the greatest things that a man can go through. Because it truly shatters you to the core of like your ego. It shatters your ego. It shatters all your pride. It shatters everything to where you're like, and that's when if you're like truly in love with somebody, if it hurts you that deep to the core where you're looking at yourself and you're like, damn, I just lost it all.
Yeah.
Like, I think you were truly in love. But so if I had to sum it up, honestly, I think it was heartbreak. And I don't think I've ever said that before out loud, but that's truly what I think it was. Because everything else to me, like it was the heartbreak, and then also, the children I lost, it was with the same woman, and it was like, I feel like because I had her, the loss of the kids wasn't hurting as bad, and then it was like when I lost her, I lost them all over again, and so I dealt with a lot of that trauma. Everything outside of that, I think, were tangible things that I kind of made like like the car and all that stuff, and so I was like, oh, I can always get it back. But I think like true raw heartbreak of losing basically what I saw as a family. I think that's really like what shattered me to where I was like, this has got to change. Like, because I'm just going to keep destroying. I mean, like I said, I was married before that, ended in shambles. And now this, and it was just like the buildup of like all these relationships, friendships, everything was just, I was losing it left and right. And so, I think that was truly like the turning point.
Yeah. Sometimes like the craziest experiences that we go through turns into something amazing, something that is going to be so impactful that has the potential to change the world. So you decided to create the Straughn Point. So what was the inspiration behind creating the Straughn Point, and what is the mission behind that? Yeah.
So the Straughn Point has been something I have been trying to figure out and build all year since I got sober. I wanted to do like a lifelong passion that I had once I had gotten into like fitness related stuff about 6-7 years ago. I knew I wanted to coach, and I knew I wanted to be on a level where I could help others reach that goal. Now that I had gotten to that point where I was able to do so, it didn't feel like enough. And I had this like gravitational pull where like the coaching market is so saturated, and yes, it's cool to give people a 6-pack and stuff like that, or, gain muscle and do all these things. But like, I felt like there was something more, and I couldn't figure out what it was yet. And then the clearer I got in the head, I started to realize more and more that like the depth of your struggle is the ceiling of your success. And I found that a lot of the pieces of things that I was struggling with, or moments where I was like, I'm a failure, and all these hardships that I'd went through, they were starting to piece themselves together, all into this future moment. There were so many connections that I was making, whether it was, the heartbreak of the relationship, right? It built my emotional intelligence into a place that I've never seen. All of the knowledge that I learned over the 7 years of fitness was all finally there, which, I was going up and down because I was struggling with addiction. So it's like my body was going up and down. I was fluctuating all the time at an unhealthy rate and stuff. But I just feel like I had gained a lot of wisdom. And I had this buddy, Colton, that moved in with me, and he's 6 years younger than me. And he helped me piece it all together, because I still had this imposter syndrome built in me where, now that I'm sober and I want to do something with it, but like, who am I? I didn't believe in my story at all. Like I was like, who am I to give people advice when I've done nothing but fail my whole life? And like, where do I get off? And so, but the thing is just being around him, I think, is one of the greatest blessings, because being around him and him being in that, like how we were talking about, like if you had advice to kids or like whatever, him being 22 years old and being in such a stage where he could let certain things take over his life, he didn't. And I think that's one of the greatest superpowers is that he has, is that at such a young age, he has so much discipline and like hardworking mentality and all these things built into him. But the thing is he blindly took my advice, and he genuinely felt like every single thing that I was telling him was the way to do it. And he noticed wisdom on me, and these things that that I was giving it. Hey, what do I do? What should I do about this? You know, what should I do in the gym? I'm dealing with anxiety. I'm dealing with depression. I'm dealing with, you know, struggling in the gym. You know, what should I do about this in my relationship? And the thing was, he pieced it all together for me. I don't even know if he knows this, but he started giving me faith in the fact that I've learned so many things because I've struggled in so many areas and lost so many things, that it gave me the empowerment that, like, oh my God, like my story might be able to help. And he's a reinforcement of that. He would say, like, dude, you significantly changed my life. Kind of like a side, not like a side tangent, but like one of the things was, you know, he was dealing with a lot of stuff mentally. And, you know, doctors these days like to just prescribe a lot of medication, right? And so I noticed he was taking a lot of, you know, just like anxiety medication, whatever it is, mood stabilizer, stuff like that. Me coming from a fitness background, where did that come into play? I said, you should go get your blood done. You know, you should go get your levels checked, because low testosterone has such an impact on a man's body that they don't realize. And everybody has this misconception that if you're young, that you have high testosterone, and that's not the case. So you could be sluggish, you could be, you know, moody, you can have all these problems where like it's just due to low T. And, you know, so he went and got tested, and come to find out he was at a very, very low score. So I guided him with all of my, you know, over the years of, you know, what I'd come to education wise, you know, guided him. And he tells me all the time, like, dude, you significantly changed my life. I don't have to take stuff anymore. My confidence is through the roof. I mean, I've put on 30 pounds of muscle, like all these things, to where he's just like, my job has gotten better. I got the confidence to leave the last job that I wasn't necessarily the happiest at. And now I do something that I truly enjoy. And it's just watching that first person that I ever like fully transformed is where I found the purpose of, like, I don't want to just change people's bodies. I want that. That was the greatest thing that I've ever seen happen, right? Because, like, yeah, I did it for myself, but I feel like giving that to other people was like, I'm even like kind of getting choked up thinking about it. Like, it was, I can't explain like the amount of like just satisfaction, like reward. And like, I just felt so good, like watching that on somebody.
Yeah.
And then came the Straughn point. I realized that I could tie in all these factors of sobriety. So I'm creating a program where it's called the Straughn point. I'll get to how I got to the name in a second, but basically I want to do something that I feel like I've never seen before. I don't know if you have, but the saturated market of fitness coaching is a big thing, right? But I've never seen people target, yes, I've seen people target the niche of like, hey, I want to help people that are dealing with addiction, but it's just basically the foundation of fitness, right? I want to build something that is, yes, I help you with everything fitness related. Don't get me wrong. Yes, we will get you a six pack. We'll hit all those goals, right? But there's different layers to that, right?
It's deeper than that, for
sure. It's deeper than that. So I am partnering with people. I don't know how much I can really speak on and whatnot, but I'm partnering with people to where I'm bringing a massive communities that they have already built and that I've met along my journey in sobriety. And they want to be a part of something big too. And so we're going to help each other out. But it's communities down to the T of, there's thousands of people included in my package that you can turn to. And I'm talking down to the specific thing that you might have struggled with. So you can find, and then we're talking people all over the country, because one of the things that I think people struggle with the most when they're trying to get sober is that sense of community. They lose all their friends, you know, at least all the ones that want to drink with them. It's very hard to find new hobbies. It's very hard to find, for me personally, I lost all sense of, when I got sober, I didn't even know what I like to do for fun anymore. I seriously did not know. When I woke up and some days and was like, what do I want to do today? I don't even know what kind of foods I like, because I was so worried about, oh, I want to eat what this person's eating, or, you know what I mean? I want to fit in here. And there's so many things consume my life. And so I had to rebuild my entire identity. I lost sense of all my own hobbies, all my own interests. So I want to give people that sense of community where they can come in, feel that they can be comfortable with their raw, authentic self down to the T. Whether you struggled with coke, there's a channel for that. Whether you struggled with pills, whether you struggled with heroin, whether you struggle with meth, whatever it is. And we're talking all walks of the journey. Whether you're deep in addiction, you're sober curious, you don't really drink that often, but you're like, what would it be like if I just stopped completely? Whether you just got sober 6 months ago or whether you've been doing it for 10 years. I think community is important. And I think with that built in, I really think that the odds of somebody getting sober and changing their life will drive up drastically, because you will have a community of people that are telling you to keep going. You will have a community of people that can relate to you. And also, I think that's why what I'm doing is impactful, is because not only that community, but now your fitness coach knows what you're going through. I know what you're going through. I've dealt with it all. I've dealt with the loss. I've dealt with the heartbreak. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
I know how to relate to that to the core. So like on top of that community and you'll just, and the thing is those communities, the people that I'm working with are amazing people, and they've already been building these communities for a while. So it's like, it's nationwide. So it's like, you know, you find me on the internet and you're in Chicago, I guarantee you there's somebody in there that lives in Chicago. And if you want that new friend that pushes you to be better, I mean, he's there. And then also I'm working with The Recovery Vow, which is a podcast that I was on in May, which is basically what led me to a lot of opportunities that I have now. But Eric Kennedy, he's a great guy. He runs The Recovery Vow, and we do a lot of stuff on that side so that way we can help anybody. So we do a lot of stuff with, you know, recommendations for if you want inpatient, outpatient therapy. If there's workshops, there's going to be live Q&As for, you know, him to hop on, people like me, and, you know, you can ask us questions in real time. If you need marriage counseling, if you know you're an older adult and you're in a marriage, and you know what I mean? Like all these different resources to where it's like all in one with me. No matter what walk of life you're on, you have connection to somebody. You have the resources. You have everything, every tool in the tool belt that you possibly need to relate to somebody and get that support system. And tying in fitness, because like everybody wants to be healthier, right? You know, whether you admit it or not. Like I don't know anybody that really says like, oh, I don't want to be healthy. Like, so you know, you have all of that all in one.
One thing I want to touch on that you briefly talked about is your story. You didn't think that, you didn't think that was big enough to kind of utilize to, like, you know, truly make an impact. One of the biggest thing I've heard from Myron Golden is the mustard seed principle. It's like, are you willing to make yourself small enough, or using your stories to let God do big things with you? So kind of when you were talking about that, that's kind of what came to my mind. Thinking about, like, you know, some people, they discount their journey. They discount like the things that they had to experience. They discount the journey that they had to go through, the hard things that they had to go through. But really, those kind of things are the things that God is using to elevate you, to really kind of help other people make a greater impact for all of that. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when 100%. You were saying that, which is so awesome.
Definitely. I mean, I agree. I think one of the things that I found out of why I feel like I was feeling that way was actually from C-Rock. When I first talked to C-Rock.
Shout out to C-Rock. Let's go.
He was explaining to me basically the neuroscience behind when you are trying to do something greater than yourself, when you are trying to, you know, go through those doors and try to do things that are bigger than what you've, you know, achieved in the past, your brain tries, like literally fires neurons that try to keep you comfortable. So it gives you things like anxiety, it gives you things like self-doubt, and it gives you those things to where like it's trying to hold you in a comfortable place. And so that's when I like really started realizing, I was like, if I can just flip that on its head. And now I think being self-aware is like a very big, like powerful thing to be. And it's like, so I can analyze now, like, you know, when I'm nervous to do something, I mean, everybody knows, that's what I'm saying, is going to these sayings that you hear people say that are successful, is like taking risk is like the biggest thing, and betting on yourself is the biggest thing that you could possibly do, because you never know where it's going to lead. And honestly, when it comes to like work, even, is something as simple as like switching from one job to the other, right? The worst place that you can go back to is where you just came from. So like Alex Hormozy even talks about this a lot. If you take the shot and it doesn't work, you can just go back to doing what you were doing before, right? So it's like, where is the risk actually? You know, people are like, oh, it's scary, but it's just your brain telling you it's scary, you know? So it's, if you're able to analyze that, I think it's really helpful, because think about it, whether you're, you know, a bartender, salesman, whatever it is, you know, whatever your thing is, if you leave and you try to jump to do something greater, you already have the skill set to go back and do. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You were in, now you're going back to the same spot you were in, and then you can try again later. Like, so that's where thinking, like, you know, mind shifts like that is what helps me keep jumping forward. And now it's just like a game of I don't even think twice now, where it's like, I just feel like my brain has built up now to where if there's an opportunity, I just jump on it. And I'm self-aware to where, like, I don't care what creeps into my head. I'm like, I'm doing it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I love it. Earlier on the before we started the show too, you were since you touch on brain right now. Earlier, we were talking about that, and you said something so powerful, and I would like you to share it with the audience about the science of the brain behind, you know, all of what we discussed.
So this is a good thing to tie into why I will give you like a scientific reason of why I think the gym and why what I'm creating will impact more than just your fitness, but a lot of different areas of life. So I learned about the anterior mid cingulate cortex. It's basically the part of the brain that handles a lot of your decision making, like your self-discipline and your restraint. It's that core piece of like, where should I do this, right or wrong? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing of like, how should I move? How should I pivot? Like, is it, discipline? And where I had a mind shift that helped me out a lot is when I found out that when you do difficult things that you don't want to do, so whether it's, going to the gym when you don't want to, whether it's eating when the food you want, or the food you're supposed to eat when you don't want to, whether it's doing something at work that you just don't want to, when you actually do those things that like, I just don't want to do this, man, the part of the brain grows. It gets stronger. It physically grows and gets stronger. And so I started shifting my brain into that. And so now the moment that you come to terms with something that you don't want to do, that is the most important time to do it, because you are actually strengthening your brain and strengthening your discipline for the future. So that's where I tie it into fitness. Is I think that that's the foundation for me personally. I think it's the foundation for so many successful people, because the amount of discipline and hard work and pushing yourself, and even if you are on a diet plan and doing all those things that you don't want to do day in and day out, they get easier because you're growing that part of the brain. That's the theory of what I put together. And I think that strengthening of that anterior mid-cingulate cortex is what spills over into the other aspects of life. So I think that as you strengthen that part of your brain, all of a sudden you start working harder at your job. You start putting in more work in your relationship. You start doing a lot of the things that you didn't want to do, or you were slacking off in, right? One of the things that I noticed is after I get done in the gym and I come home, for some reason, that's the easiest time for me to do the dishes. Everybody hates doing the dishes.
Wow.
That's the easiest time for me to do dishes. I think it's because that part of my brain is firing, and it doesn't even think twice about stuff that I don't want to do. I'm like, oh, I'll do it. Yeah. Because like it's active. It's like, it's pumping. I just did something that I didn't want to do at first. But yeah, so I think thinking about things like that in the moment, when you don't want to do something, and looking at, I'm actually bettering myself, and more than just, because fitness is a very monotonous thing. It can get really boring. It can get really, it's the same thing day in and day out. You go to the gym, you do the workouts, you come home, you eat the same food. Yes. But I think when you look at it with specifics like that, so for me, that's what resonated is, okay, but every time I do this, when I don't want to, it's strengthening me, and now it's pouring over into other buckets of life, right? And so I think that that's genuinely what happened, because for me, what happened is when I was starting in my journey of redemption, as I would call it, right, in the beginning of the year, I didn't know what I was going to do, or how I was going to get successful, or how I was going to help other people. I didn't know what to do really, but I knew if I went to the gym every day, because I refound my love for like bodybuilding and the gym and everything, I knew if I just went there, stuck to it every single day, and I committed to the gym is all I need to do. Just go to the gym, go to the gym, go to the gym, eat the food you're supposed to do. Just keep doing that hard work. Everything will just start following suit. And I genuinely think that's what happened, because I even have like a client of mine who has been saying, I told him that same thing, right? Because he's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. I want to do something impactful like you're doing. I want to do these things, but I don't know where to start. So just give it a week. Just do what you're supposed to do for a week, and I promise you the ideas will come. Not even 24 hours later, all of a sudden, the ideas are flowing. He's texting me, it would be really cool to do this. It'd be really cool to do that. And that's what I'm saying is, if you just trust in that dopamine rush, that actual real dopamine, not this, scroll on TikTok, fake dopamine that we're getting from social media, or the drinking and all this stuff. That real rush, like your brain is so active that the ideas start coming to you. Mm-hmm. I'm also a big advocate for like going on morning walks, not only for like, it's one of the best things for body recomposition, especially in the midsection, but just it wakes your brain up and the ideas start flowing, and you started the day with a win. And then the momentum starts going. You start a day with the win. You know what I mean? You're up. I'm not saying you have to be up before the sun every day, but like you go on, you get your steps in, brain's firing, now your body's active. You started off with a win, and then it just starts snowballing from there, like very easily.
Now that you're saying that, I'm curious, why do you think entrepreneurs or the successful entrepreneurs out there make fitness or going to the gym a priority?
Because it teaches you all you need to know, dude. I mean, you're working hard. So not only are you teaching yourself discipline, they make it a non-negotiable, right? They make it this is how it's instilled in their brain. When they wake up and their daily routine is going on, and somebody asked them, hey, at 4 o'clock, would you like to do this? They don't think, oh, okay, let me do that if they work out at 4 o'clock. They think, I can't do that because I work out at 4 o'clock. It's something that is instilled into their daily routine because it's the discipline that they're showing is that, hey, this is a non-negotiable for me because I know for me, like, so let's say for me, I know that that is the core, that is deep down the core of what everything else in my life needs to operate. So if I'm start sacrificing that here and there and I'm giving up the discipline of going to the gym, then I'm sacrificing my, possible mental health as far as, because I operate at the highest level when I'm going to the gym. So therefore my conversations are weakened with other people. My relationship could start struggling. My job could start struggling. It's the fountain that pours over into everything else. That is the deep rooted core of like what I am and what I do. And so I think it's the same with successful people. I think that's what I've found out is because of so much positivity and hard work and everything, the discipline that you're putting in. And like, think about it. Think about how hard it is to just do those extra reps in the gym, right? When you're doing that, you're strengthening that part of the brain and all that discipline is pouring over into other aspects of life. So I think by sacrificing the gym, you're slowly killing off the possibilities in all your other areas of life. And I mean, that's just my, there are people that are successful without the gym, sure.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, when you look at the really successful people, they're in the gym, like the 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said, mic drop. You talk a lot about how, you talk a lot about how momentum is more important than motivation. Can you talk to me a little bit about what does that look like in a daily life?
Yeah. So I think people overcomplicate motivation, discipline, and momentum, right? So at first I feel like when you're first starting out and you're looking for that spark, you're looking for that magic pill, that magic, what's that advice that I can get to, start being successful? I feel like everybody looks too hard at motivation because it's something they felt before. And so they look for that spark. They're sitting there like, all right, I'm motivated. But the thing is, motivation fizzles, right? Nobody wakes up. Like you see these people that are super successful. Nobody wakes up motivated 100% of the time, all the time. That's fake. Nobody does that. Nobody has motivation instilled for that long. But the thing is that's where discipline comes into play. They're doing the stuff when they don't want to do it, right? And so that's where you have your principles like, hey, I go to the gym at 4 every day. I have to do this for work. This is a non-negotiable for me. That's where discipline comes in. So I went from motivation to discipline, but then I found this thing called momentum. I didn't even know that momentum could be used in this way outside of like a ball rolling down a hill and the snowball's getting momentum, right? So I figured out that when I did one little thing, it would carry to the next, and then it would carry to the next, and carry to the next. So that one little, like I just talked about walking in the morning, when I had no money, there was very limited things that I could do, right? And so I wanted to wake up and I was like, you know what? I see all this advice all the time about stacking wins. Let's just see what happens. So I woke up and I would just go walk like 2 miles every day. I would walk those miles. But the thing is, I found out that when I came back, all of a sudden, I was more motivated to go to work, right? Or, I felt that urge of like, oh, wow. And so the one win leads to another win. And then all of a sudden now, you know what I mean? Or let's say even you wake up early, that win leads to a walk. Then that win leads to, all right, now I'm going to go to work and I'm going to do this. And I think one day at a time, everything starts stacking up and it becomes easier, right? So it's like you can even dial it down to that one workout that you did. I went to the gym one time. I'm a firm believer in just try something one time. Just try something, just try it again. Just try to do it consistently in a row, right? So that one workout, all of a sudden you come home, but you're in a good mood. Now you want to eat better. Mm-hmm. Now it's snowballed into that. Now all of a sudden you're feeling in a good mood and there's a hard conversation that you were supposed to have. Now you have that hard conversation and now 10 easier ones open up and communicating becomes a lot easier. All of a sudden, and then I'm a firm believer of when you do what you say you're supposed to do, that's where true confidence comes from. When you're honest and you do what you say you're going to do, don't speak something into this world if you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
That is, in my opinion, the two things that build a very, very confident, strong character. Because if I know I'm always being honest, no matter if it's a hard situation, a hard conversation or not, and I just tell it how it is, and hey, because I can't feel guilt. I dealt with so much guilt for 10 years that is the last thing on this planet I ever want to feel. So now by being honest and authentic, and the person I was always trying to run from, it's funny enough, is now like who I'm so proud to be is like myself. This whole time I've been avoiding who I am. Mm-hmm. But there's those two things I genuinely feel would build confidence. And I think you get those from the small wins, and the small wins stack. And then the days, the hours turn into days, and the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, it's 8 months later and you're sitting on a podcast with Jet. You know what I mean?
Let's go.
Yeah, like you just really never know. And it's the momentum, because like I said earlier, as I built my brain up too, now when the doors present themselves, I just jump on it. I jump into it. But it's because I'm finding opportunities, because I go to the gym, I do all these things, and one success is leading to another. And now I'm networking with these people, and the things are just popping up. And I just say, yes, 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 yes. Like, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And you just keep jumping through the doors. And the momentum is what's keeping me at like prime, like optimization, to where I just keep jumping through the doors. And the thing is I believe in manifestation. And I think if you bring that real picture of what you're trying to do to life and just really put the work in and try to do it, the doors just keep opening. And I feel like, I'm not necessarily the most religious person, but I feel like if you are doing things, this is where I feel like a lot of things change for me, is when you have that deep down passion, like in your core, where you're doing something for a good reason and you're really wanting to help others. I'm not necessarily the most religious guy, but I think that's when God starts putting doors in front of you. And I think, he puts them there, and because that's when all the opportunities start opening for me. Because I've tried to get sober in the past. I've tried to do, but I've tried to do my own little side businesses. I've tried to do all these things, but I was always money motivated. I was never driven from passion or wanting to help others or do things in good conscience, right? It was always a very selfish state. And I feel like now that I truly deep in my core have like tried to do these things for a greater good, the doors have started presenting themselves, and now momentum has come in, and now I'm just jumping through them like hoops. Like I don't even think twice. I'm just going, I'm going. And so that's why I think the momentum, because if you stay on that track and you stay obsessed with what you're trying to do, and you stay obsessed in the gym, and you stay obsessed with everything, every walk of life you're trying to do, I genuinely feel like that is more powerful than not only discipline, but like motivation. Because motivation to me is the least important.
Yeah, absolutely. So proximity and community, I can tell, has been two of the major things that has shaped where you are at today, and that has done amazing things for you. So proximity and community are the two important things, and being around the right people. How does that play in somebody's growth?
So I'll speak because a lot of people ask me this question all the time I get a lot of that, what's that magic pill question, because things change for me very quickly. This year will definitely go down as one of the most life-changing years that I've had by a mile. And the thing is I guess you would say that saying like work smarter, not harder kind of a thing. I started opening up my brain to proximity, let's say, because, you see all these people online that there's always good and bad to every situation, but you see these people online that are selling things like courses, right? And you have the majority of the population is like, that's a scam. You see some guy on there with a flashy lifestyle and he's selling these courses for $10,000 a pop, whatever it is. Some guys give it a bad rap, but then I started thinking about all of the truly successful people that at the same time will, live and stand on investing in a mentor is the biggest thing that you could ever do to change your life. And so I really started breaking it down because, like I said, things are starting to tie in, and now my brain is clear. I'm thinking clearer, and I'm starting to really analyze, okay, but what does that mean? What does hiring a mentor mean? And I figured out people are hiring mentors. It's not just some easy way out. It's not like this thing, but think about this. If you could pay somebody that has already spent 10 years of their life going through the hardships, they've already spent 10 years of their life burning cash to figure it out, and they've spent the 10 years, and now, it took them 10 years to get there. Why would you not hire that person to tell you every single thing that they know to fast track your success? So that's when I was like, oh my God, because people are so worried about the big number figure, whether it's, it's $2,500, it's $5,000, it's $10,000. In the grand scheme of things, the amount of knowledge that you learn from a person that has done what you're trying to do and has become very successful in it, you no longer have to wait 5 years. You no longer have to wait 10 years. You no longer have to burn hundreds of thousands of dollars and then work all these like crazy, I got to work 3 jobs and, I got to do all that. Like, no, yes, don't get me wrong. That's amazing if you can do that 100%. But I think part of me analyzing and breaking that down came from the fact that I felt like I had 10 years that I could never get back. And so I was like, how do I speed this up? Because you know what I mean? I want to be successful now. I want to figure this out and I want to do good now. And so that's where I really started learning like proximity is power, right? And so I decided to put myself in these uncomfortable situations because I was like, oh, spending that money is kind of crazy, right? But it's funny how the hardest thing to invest in is yourself. Like when when they present you with that opportunity, all right, and you're like, you start having the self-doubt, you're like, yeah, but what if it doesn't work out? And it's like, you need to reframe, like, what if it does? You know what I mean? Because you're in control of the amount of work you put in. You're in control of how much, of a mindset you have towards it. You're in control of if you're confident in it, if you work, all these things that you're in control of. So why wouldn't you invest in yourself? Yeah. It's the one thing that you can control 100% is how your body moves and thinks. So I started investing in, he basically scales coaching businesses, right? And I was like, for me personally, it was a guy that I've been watching since I got into fitness, and I watched his journey, over the years of he was just some guy on YouTube making meal plans and like, hey, you should eat this meal 1, 2, 3, whatever. I watched him at a very, very early age. And then I watched him turn into a coach, and then I watched him turn into what he's doing now, which is scaling other people's businesses, right? And so luckily I had somebody, this is again where things were starting to tie in. I was like, oh my gosh, like every part of my life that I was like doing at early on in my 20s, like it was all tying in. And so I was like, I'm going to hire this guy because like I knew deep down, this is an authentic guy. I watched him. I watched his upbringing. I watched everything he did. So I put money into that. And now he's telling me, like I said, the Straughn point is an earlier, it just started, but we're going to be putting all this effort into content, all this thing, how to reach out, he knows how ads, marketing, he knows all these things that he spent 10 years of trial and error. So now I've dumped into that. When I went on my first podcast as well, that was something that I like never thought I would do. Public speaking is not my thing. I told you, I was a very shy kid in the beginning, and like the thought of speaking in front of people was like terrifying. Like I never thought I would do that.
Same here. Yeah. Same here. Like literally did not want to be on that side of the desk, but and literally has become one of my favorite thing ever to kind of do. So when you have a message to share and you're doing yourself and other people a disservice not doing it, like getting it into your mind of like of putting that block, not being able to share it, because like the message when you start sharing your story and doing all of the other stuff, the impact that could have could be astronomical.
And so what happened is whenever I went on the Recovery Vow podcast that I was talking about, it was a very scary thing. I was still very early on. I still felt like I didn't know if I had much to offer. But the guy, Eric Kennedy, is a very genuine guy. He's like, dude, let's just come on. Let's have a conversation. And, let's just see what happens. Taking that risk and putting myself, I'm a firm believer now in like, you need to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so if something's uncomfortable, I like want to do it now because I'm like seeing where it's going. Going on that podcast, I significantly think has changed my life forever. And it was just, to me, I was like, oh gosh, like jumping on a random podcast and talking about sobriety. You can even go back to my clips where I'm like, I'm only like 2 or 3 months sober. Like, what do I know? You know what I mean? I'm still taking it day by day. That has now led to him, Eric Kennedy of the Recovery Vow podcast, is the person that introduced me. Not only are we partnering now for something I think that's going to be huge, but he's the one that introduced me to C-Rock. And then now, we're in that, networking group with Mike C-Rock and all these people. And, like you reached out to me and now here I am. And so but it never would have happened if I didn't take that risk of just, some random podcast that popped up and I had all those self-limiting beliefs of, but what do I know? I've been sober a couple months. I don't know how to do this. I don't know anything. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's just do it. And so that's what I mean by just jumping through the hoops as they present themselves. You're never going to regret doing something like that, but it is scary. It's like, do I really want to be on camera, with all these, but I realized like, I don't care what anyone else thinks. And also a big thing is if somebody's not in the place that you want to be, like, why are you caring so much about their opinion? Which is like what I was always so consumed with in addiction. So I tried to just do the opposite basically of like everything I did during then. And I was like, screw it. Let's just take a chance. Let's jump on the podcast. And then now it's leading to stuff that it's moving so fast that I'm having a hard time like processing it. To where now it's like, jumped in that group and then now I've met you and now I'm here and now we're going to, I have to go to the donor lunch in Augusta and there's a lot of people that are just going to be there like big, whether it's, shout out to Kat Sorensen, which is a very big like sobriety influencer too. And she's just a great human. She runs rehab. She has like her online sobriety community. She's a great human. I've met her and she's a big impact. But even like you'd be surprised how many people deal with addiction because I'm going to meet, like, for instance, the guy that was on The Blind Side, the guy that played the main character on The Blind Side. He's going to be at the donor lunch. There's just so many things that are happening where I'm like, I never thought I'd meet these people in my life. And then it's like, now, like, C-Rock's having this event in Los Angeles where, at the at the mansion event and the quantum expansion and all these things that are just opening up. And it's like, I just don't hesitate to jump through those hoops. And it's like, for instance, whenever, they put that thing out in the group about the Wild X event and, applying to that and going and like, you might be selected for TEDx, which is like such a big scale of like a thing to speak on. But I was like, what am I going to lose by just applying for? Right. And then I got accepted to do that. And so now it says like, things are moving so fast, but it's because of the momentum of that I tied in. Is every time I see something, I'm like, just don't be scared to do it. Just do it. Just jump through the hoop. And it's like, it's hitting. Yeah. And so it's a snowball effect that it's like, it's getting so exciting, but it's happening so fast to where it's just like, I started rambling because it's like, it's so excited. Like, man, it's just like hard to believe sometimes where I'm like, what is happening?
That's awesome. As we're nearing the end of the talk show today, what is the future of the Straughn Point?
Yeah.
Where do you see this organization be in like 5 years?
So I never mentioned like why I called it the Straughn Point, right? So as everybody knows, Charlie Kirk was assassinated about a week ago. I'm not saying this in a way of a political way, or that has nothing to do with it. Charlie Kirk had a very big impact on a lot of people, and especially the youth, and he was saving a lot of people from whether it was mental illness or finding God, or just, he was making a big impact that I don't think anyone realized that he was having until he was killed, unfortunately. But Turning Point USA, I just love the message that, they went on this huge just purpose of they just want to shape, they want to do good. It was a very it had nothing to do with like corrupting the youth to turn to the right wing or any of these things. I truly, to its core, he believed. Again, I'm not super religious, but I love what he believed. It's in a reference to the Bible that you are commanded and put on this earth to go do something with your life. You are supposed to take risks. You are supposed to give. You are supposed to be good to other people. And as you build something successful like that, you are to sow that into other people. And that's what creates, just everybody, just love, just world love, is because you're sowing those properties into others. And so that's where I really resonated, because this assassination was a very big deal. And I feel like I was just terrified. And I feel like a lot of America is really fed up with just all the hate that's going on. And I just was really terrified that this was going to be something that, we find who did it. And, it's just, all right, now it's the guy's in jail and then we move on. I was really terrified of that because of the impact that he was having on everybody. And so I was really impacted by him, and I think a lot of others were too. And so that's why I called it the Straughn Point, because I resonated with what he was trying to do as a turning point for people's lives. And so to me, the Straughn Point is when you decide to rock with me, it is my mission to that be the defining moment and the point in your life. And this is why I want to expand it to so many buckets of life, is because that is the defining moment where you can look back and be like, this is when my life changed forever. Seriously, this is where I got healthier. This is where my job changed. This is where my relationship changed. This is where I got sober. This is where everything changed for me. And so that's my mission, is to just transform as many lives as physically possible. And that's why I like jumping on, any opportunity I can to just speak to, even if let's say we're on here and it resonates with one person. That's another person's life goal.
If one person can be watching this and be impacted by all of it, this has been extremely successful.
Yeah. I've never been more compelled. It's a gravitational pull that I've never felt before in my life. It's you can feel that it's something bigger than yourself, and I truly believe in it. And it's something that I feel like every struggle and everything that I've ever dealt with in my life has finally led to this point of this is the turning point. And so that's what I want to give to somebody. I want to give that guidance. I know what you've been through. I have a community that knows what you've been through. I have everything that you could possibly imagine. I want this to be the turning point for you, because everyone deserves to have that chance to get better. They really do. And sometimes the hardest part is just finding not only that mentor, but just that piece of the puzzle that where do I turn things around? Because it's so hard to start. The starting point of when you're really trying to make a change, it's so hard to get that point down and to really, really make a difference. So that's why I think it'll be impactful, because I think I'm putting all of the pieces together to make it as simple as possible and as easy and as supportive and as this is the point. This is the point where you have every tool you could possibly need to change your life forever. And then now go sow that into others. And so that's where, a lot of messages that Charlie Kirk has and the good that he had in his heart, that he just wanted to change, he wanted people to love, he wanted people to find God, he wanted people to help each other. He just really wanted like that world peace of like, you know, I want to do something powerful and I want to change everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel like deep down in my core, this will get to the point where this is also a way for me to like remember that how much he impacted me, but like, you know, I firmly believe it'll get to a point where it's going to be massive. And I want his message to also be tied into that of like, because he's part of my story. And so I want his name to always be forever remembered too, as well. And so that's a way from, if this does blow up, you know what I mean? If this does get to something that's worldwide, you know, he will never be forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah. One last question before we end this talk show today. For anybody that maybe they just decided that they want to start that process to become sober, what is the biggest advice that you would give them that you've learned over your journey of being 8 months sober that you will tell them right now?
The biggest piece of advice going into like when they want to make that change?
If today was day one for sobriety for somebody, what is the biggest advice that you would give them to keep at it and continue to work on it?
I think you need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and make sure that you're ready, because you need to think about things. This is the advice that I would give. You need to think about things that you're going to lose friends. It's going to be hard. It's going to be lonely at times. It's going to require discipline. It's going to require you to have a battle within your own brain. It's going to be difficult. I don't want to sit here and tell anybody it's going to be easy, because it's one of the hardest things I ever did. But if you could take me, you know, as advice, or, you know, or as like social proof, for, let's say, that you can build, like I said earlier, the depth of your struggle, I think, is the ceiling of your success. And I think if you harness all of the trials and tributes and all of this pain and all of these things that you've gone through in your life and turn them into good, I think that makes you more special. You know, I don't want to say like more dangerous, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, like you are more qualified than somebody, then, because you have that inner fire that's like, you know, you've got something to prove, versus like, oh, you know, I grew up and then I went to school correctly and then I went, you know, did all these things of like, oh, I got, you know, a job here, and, you know, just that typical traditional way. I think when you flip it on the head and look at it like that, but prepare yourself that it's going to be hard, you need to be ready for that. I think you 100% need to be ready for lonely nights. You need to be ready for telling people no. You need to be ready to look all your friends in the face and say, this is who I am now. There's a very important thing that it was related to smoking, like a study that I was paying attention to, where when you, like, because I'm big on reframing your brain, right? And so whenever people were quitting smoking cigarettes, whenever they went into a conversation with somebody else randomly, they studied like how successful they were at kicking the habit, right? And it was based on two things. The one group went in and they said, oh, I just quit smoking, or I'm quitting smoking, right? They said it in these terms of like, oh yeah, you know, I'm trying to quit smoking. The group that went in and said, I'm not a smoker, and significant rate of success, than the group that was saying, I'm trying, or I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And so that is something that I used as a tool as well. Is it doesn't matter if you got sober yesterday. It does not matter. If somebody asks you, do you want to, oh, I don't drink. And then because that is a bold enough statement too, because they're going to prey on the weakness of you saying, oh, I'm kind of trying to stay sober, because it doesn't sound like you even want it. Yeah. So if you stand behind and firm in your belief of, hey, I don't drink anymore, I firmly think that will help you a lot. Every time that it is brought up, say, I don't drink anymore. I don't do drugs anymore. I don't do that. And obviously in the beginning, you know, it's going to be harder. Like, I wouldn't put yourself in situations or like scenarios like, you know, some people can go out to the bar and not drink. I would advise you just kind of do your own thing. Find a lot of things that occupy your time. Find a new hobby, you know, new groups. Try to find new friends. There's just a lot of things that you're going to have to be willing to kill the old version of yourself is really what you have to do. And that's a hard process. Yeah. But just know it's light at the end of the tunnel. It's all for the greater good, and you're going to get through it. And it's going to be an amazing thing. You're going to do it's an incredible change that I hope everybody could go through.
Yeah. So now that you've been sober for 8 months, what has been your highest, Now that you've been sober for 8 months, what has been the biggest result or biggest transformation that you've gained from going through that journey?
The biggest result that I've gotten out of the journey?
Let me rephrase that question. What is now that you've gone through being sober for 8 months, what did sobriety did for you?
Sobriety brought me back to almost like that peace that you have as like a kid, where you just have joy. You find joy in the small things. You wake up excited to live life. You wake up, you want to do something powerful. Your dreams get a lot bigger. Just, you know what I mean? That ultimate bliss that you like really have as a child, where anything is possible. You get that back. I've started being more present. I feel like being consumed by your phones and TikToks and all these things is like, I feel like a lot of people, let's say you work at whatever your job is right now. A lot of people don't like their job as much because they're not present. I think being present has a big thing to do with a lot of stuff. So just like, if you're at work, even if you're not doing anything, just put your phone away, talk to people around you, connect with humans. That's what's like been a big thing for me too, is like, I'm able to connect with humans. I've gotten my truth back. I've gotten my authentic, like real person back, which I feel like I haven't had since a kid. So maybe that's why I'm like saying that, because my body grew up when I started drinking, but like my brain didn't, you know what I mean? And that's something that Eric Kennedy taught me as well, is like when we were on his podcast is, your body grows up when, but your brain is still like hindered there. My memory is like more clear. I can think, my decision making is better. I process emotion way better. It's just, you're so much more put together. And I promise you, like alcohol has more of a grip on your brain than you realize. But ultimately I'd say like the biggest thing that I took away from it is I wake up every day and I'm confident in myself and I know who I am. And it does not matter to me a single person that tells me otherwise. I've finally found like what it means to be truly confident and like happy with who you are as your own. Because one thing that I didn't really hit on enough was, when I went through that breakup and I was rebuilding myself, I found out that I didn't have my identity, right? And so I feel like that's why I think heartbreak is one of the biggest things you can go through as a man, is because you have to learn how to build a foundation that is yours, that you built it. It's, everything is yours, and you're no longer relying on your happiness from a girlfriend or from, drinking. Your happiness is built on you. And so it's like, I wake up now, like being by myself used to be one of the scariest and most triggering things for me. And that's usually when I'd pull my phone out and be like, do you want to go drink? Does anybody want to hang out? Does anybody want to hang out? Because to me, I was associating being by myself with, you're a loser. Why are you not with anybody? And now being by myself a lot of times is the most peaceful thing on the planet, because like I enjoy the small things like my dog or just sitting there and doing my work. And, there's nothing eating me alive, but it also ties in because I'm so honest now. Like I'm very like, I tell the truth no matter what, which I used to lie all the time. You know what I mean? And it's just not having to live with all of that guilt is like the most free. Your brain is free. Like you're finally free. You don't have the guilt. You don't have all these toxic things just weighing you down. And it just, if that's what I can say, I feel free. I feel like I can move, do, and act. I can do whatever I want. And I'm very, very confident in who I am, because I just know as long as I'm a good human to others and I'm honest, everything's going to work out.
Fantastic, man! It's such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Course,
that was awesome.
Thank you.
For anybody that is watching this that might want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
So if you go to my handle on Instagram is Straughn, so it's my last name STRAUGHN and then ZYY. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me, I would say. If you like the tattoo, I know it's detail work. Yeah. Sans Tattoos, SANZ Tattoos. That's his handle. And then, like I said, if you guys are also curious there's a lot of content for sobriety. If you're sober curious, there's a lot of different people that speak on the Recovery Vow podcast as well. So just type that in too. But those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. And then, if you're curious about things, that I've been working with, or, wanting some advice, and you're just starting to really spark curiosity out of this. But
awesome. Well, such a pleasure having you.
Yeah,
that was fantastic. And thank you for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you, man.
You shared your fantastic journey, and I know that's going to be impacting a lot of people.
I think it'll be truly something great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there you have it. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow this guy on Instagram. If you're dealing with anything as it relates to drug or alcohol or anything like that, and you need to be in a community, or you need, ask for help, reach out to this guy, and
we'll get you right.
we got you right. Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
It's fire. Let's go.